Hello, everyone. Thank you again for joining me. Today's topic is going to be part of my playlist. Is EDC getting out of hand? But the topic of this video is going to be the recent surge, or maybe not so recent surge, of EDC in the last decade or two, at least that I've noticed. And the good and the bad that comes with that. And there's a lot of good, and there's a little bit of bad, just a little. And I have some options out here on the table that we're just going to go through because I just feel like, because the community has gained such fame, right? The hobby has gained such popularity over these last 2 decades that it's allowed for us to have way more options than we once did, or at least from what I've seen, right? For example, at one time, I could not find a really nice pen. Not to say they weren't there, but it was for prices I didn't want to spend. Like, Machine Error has been around a long time. This Tactile Turn has come out. I don't know when they first opened up shop, but they've been around for a little while now. But like, I once wanted Prometheus Designs. They came out with a pen, and I liked it, but I wasn't willing to spend the price. At least at the time that I saw the price was posted, was over $100. I think it was kind of getting close to the 150 mark, and it was just more than I was willing to spend on a pen. My limit for me is usually around $100, and that's a lot still. But if it's a good pen, I think it's worth it. And that's just my limit for for pens. For knives, it's a little more. As you can see, these aren't very, they're not very cheap knives. This is a $500 knife. Currently, at the making of this video, this is $300. I disagree with the price of this knife because I purchased it for $2, and at one time it was much more affordable than that. But I digress. But because of the fame and the surge of popularity EDC, the community and the hobby has seen, it has allowed us to have more options. It's allowed for companies to come out, that are catering specifically to us, and then companies that have already existed to kind of jump on the bandwagon, so to speak, and then cater to us because we're an untapped market, right? At least, well, we were. Now I think we might be a little saturated, but that's not a bad thing. You can get a nice light like this. This is just a AA light that's got very good mode spacing, very good UI. This specifically has a good UI, this copper version. You have something like this, an O-light, or you can even get a Skill Hunt M200, just like this one, 18650 battery light with an excellent UI, excellent tint. The tint on this is okay. It's not great, but the Skill Hunt M200 you can get it in a high CRI neutral tint, and that's wonderful. There's companies coming out making different tools, like Big Idea Design with their TPT slide, or Exceed Designs with this, this utility blade. Even Big Idea Design is coming out already has a version of this at the making of this video. During the time of making this video, this watch, the RZE UTD 8000, that's a wonderful option. If you want a tough digital watch that has a sapphire crystal and a metal case, then that's a great option because this is very affordable. G-Shocks are great. I love G-Shocks, but in order for me to get a G-Shock with these materials, I'm going to pay an astronomical amount. I'll just leave it at that. If you want to know, go ahead and look it up for yourself. But they are not cheap. There's companies like Knipex, these little Cobras, and I also have a pliers wrench. And this is a handy set of pliers. It's an extremely handy set of pliers. And there's other companies that have come out with more affordable versions of these, which is wonderful. I like the options. I like having the options of affordability. Something, maybe if you pay a little more, you get something a little better. And that's a beautiful and wonderful thing. Also, because this community has grown in such, popularity, it's allowing for more people to connect from different walks of life, from different backgrounds, from different, just people who do different things, whether you work at an office or you're blue collar, or maybe you might be a political figure. I don't know. Or it allows people from so many different places, different walks of life, different backgrounds to come together, share ideas, share philosophies, share gear, and share their experiences. And I think that has a huge value, you know, in and of itself. I love that. And I like seeing that. I like talking to people and having conversations with people about their gear. And it's allowed for, way more YouTube videos and channels to be available, like this one, like mine, to be available where we can talk about things like this, or talk about gear, or have people review gear that you might be interested in but are afraid to pull the trigger on because maybe it's more than you've spent on a piece of gear. But they've done the work for you in a sense, and you can maybe kind of piggyback off of that and go like, you know what, yeah, I'm going to purchase it. Or you can make a decision and say, no, it's not for me. That's wonderful. It's we're helping one another in a sense, right? And to be able to consume media about something that I'm interested in is wonderful. I love learning about each and every subcategory of things on the table. Flashlights has its own like subcategory that you could fall down and just, or fall into, and just go down the rabbit hole and learn so much, like tint and BBL and DINs and just CCT and CRI, and there's different LEDs. There's so much, like multi-tools, it's its own thing. Knives, you have geometry and blade steel and heat treat and materials, and watches are its own rabbit hole as well. There's you can go down and learn so much. And I'm a nerd. I love learning, and that's where I get most of my enjoyment from. But also, because of all the options we have out there, it allows for people who love the chase. If you find enjoyment from chasing good gear, well, you have a plethora of gear to chase after. You can go out and learn and try different things and find out what you like and what you don't like, and that's a beautiful and a wonderful thing. And because of that, it's made for more innovation. There's companies that are making things that are innovating, making new tools, like Roxxon makes a modular multi-tool, and it's an affordable modular multi-tool. That's just amazing to me, because to be able to have a multi-tool that again, within what they offer in that modularity, but to make a tool that's specific to you is wonderful. I wish I could do that with this. I wish I could make a tool that would, a Swiss Army knife that I can make, how I want. And maybe they'll do that one day. I love it. I love the innovation. I like, and the materials that you can get available. This is titanium. This is titanium. This is anodized aluminum. This is stainless. That's titanium. Most of the things on here happen to be titanium. This is copper. Worksharp has come out with a knife that is made of a magnesium alloy, right? And it's integral. It's all, the handle's all one piece, and you just slide the blade into it. That's amazing. And not just that, but you can make it either a manual folding knife, or you can make it a automatic folding knife, just with a spring. They've made it interchangeable. That's materials and innovation. I love where the EDC community and the hobby is going because of that. It's allowed for more, more unique ideas as well. Maybe I'm kind of piggybacking on what I've said, but I like the uniqueness behind the ideas that some people have, and not just companies making gear, but like people in the community just coming up with solutions to problems that people have, or people didn't know they had, right? And what I mean is, so for example, I put this on here because I do make my own leather holsters, my own leather gear, and this slips into here, right? What I found was an issue was that I had a hard time pulling this out, but I didn't want to make this smaller, and I didn't want to put like a finger hole in here to push it up. So I put this on there, and this is not anything amazing or innovative to put a little lanyard there, but what I found is that this, if I made it too long, it would get in the way of my tools. But with this length, it's perfect. And I had people ask me, why I did that. They liked it. Maybe they liked it aesthetically, but I explained that it was for a utilitarian purpose. But I like that it can serve both purposes, both aesthetic and utilitarian. This is a custom colorization. I've done this with nail polish and acetone. But it's things like that. People can show you something and they have questions, and you can present an idea that makes it a lot easier for people who are like, you know what, I would like to do that because it would solve an issue in my life. And that's what EDC is we carry these things because we're trying to solve, or at least trying to help with these little things that slow us down every day. We carry these things so that we can be able to tackle those little things that slow us down. But there's also bad. And, there's not a whole lot of bad, at least not so far that I can see there, but there is bad. And what I mean by that is there's companies that are, they're charging more than what I think their gear is worth. And although, that's a tale as old as time, it's a truth. Just for example, this knife, I bought it for $200. Now it's a $300 knife. That's a little ugly because there's not been a lot of changes or updates to this knife. They haven't changed anything. That's got issues. That's not a beautiful thing, and I'm not going to get into those issues now. But if you know, you know. There's, it's also allowed for counterfeiters, the counterfeit market, to really become prevalent. I mean, it's always been prevalent, but now because of the popularity, they're targeting us. They're targeting the community. I mean, a G-Shock is being counterfeited. What an ugly thing. I mean, not that the G-Shock's ugly, but that it's being counterfeited. This is not an expensive watch. I mean, it's more than what it once was at the current time of making this video, but this is not an expensive watch, and they're counterfeiting it. They're counterfeiting. I can't go on eBay without seeing a counterfeit Benchmade. That's ugly. That's a terrible thing. And, it's also caused, like, there's some company practices that I don't agree with, such as, and just as an example, this is not the only example, but I'm going to use Leatherman as an example. They've recently been coming out with a lot of limited releases. And I don't agree with limited releases because it's just kind of a cash grab, and you're preying on people's fear of missing out, preying on FOMO. And I don't like that because I think for me to say it's manipulative is kind of, it's a little, I think it's a foolish thing to say just because, companies can be manipulative. It's a very well-known fact, right? But I don't like it because it allows for scalpers to have a field day with items. Like Leatherman they just recently at the making of this video put out the Captain Crunch. And that it was $250. And now you see them on eBay being sold for 2-3 times as much on the gray market. And that's ugly because someone who really could have gotten enjoyment from that tool is now not going to be able to enjoy that tool because it's being sold for a ridiculous price over what its original asking price was. And I don't like that companies it's not their fault it's happening. It's just, ugly people taking advantage of the system. I'm not saying companies need to police that, but I don't agree with limited releases because that's kind of more of a byproduct, but I don't agree with them because now if you're making good tools, just make good tools. Why do you have to make it limited? Why do you have to prey on our fear of missing out? That's not okay. It doesn't sit right with me, and it leaves a bad taste in my mouth. I don't like that at all. There's, and it also, I touched on the prices, but there's also an increase in prices with less innovation. There's some companies that are coming out with like for example, I mean, I use Benchmade as an example. Let me pick on someone else. Uh, Big Idea Design. They've come out with the TI Pocket Pro, which is a pen that I used to have. I don't have it anymore. I sold it, and there's a reason for that, but that's in another video. That's for another video. They came out with a TI Pocket Pro, and when it first came out, it was $100. Now it's $75. But they've also come out with a USA-made TI Pocket Pro. And from what I can read and tell on their website, the only difference is that the knurling, right, where you would grip the pen, instead of having 5 stripes on the Chinese-made TI Pocket Pro, the USA-made one has 13 stripes for the 13 stripes of the American flag. And they're charging $120 for that. You're charging $45 more than what the current rate that you're asking for the Chinese one, for virtually no change at all. And I don't like that. I don't like that people feel they can charge more because if you really love the gear, you're going to go for it. I get that there's definitely room for passion in this hobby, and I'm not knocking you if that's what you do. I'm not saying you're a bad person because you went and bought the American-made one. If you enjoy it, then enjoy it. If that's what you like, that's what you like. There's nothing wrong with that. But I just don't like companies preying on that it's a deceptive practice to me. Maybe you may not feel that way, but that's how I feel about it. It's very ugly in my opinion, and I don't like it. Some other things like Olight, they come out with a product, and then sometimes 6 months later they come out with a better product, and they're kind of cannibalizing their own market. It's a bit weird. I'm kind of curious to see where they're going to go with that. I love Olight. I love specifically this flashlight, the Olight Baton 3 Pro in neutral white, but where they don't make this anymore. They made this, for a while, but now they've come out with something that I would say is better, but for me is not better, right? And another thing, I'll touch on this, and I'll probably end the video, is that there's because of the options out there, there's an oversaturation, and there's good side to that, and on the flip side, there's a bad side because you can get burnt out on it. There's Taylor Martin from Best Damn EDC. He's talked about this, where he's kind of felt a little bit of burnout because he's always chasing, and that was kind of me. I really enjoyed the chase, but after a while, I got tired of it. I got sick of it, and as you can see, I do have EDC gear that I pick from. I don't actually ever use these anymore. This was a gift. This one I purchased. This I don't use. I just kind of have it around the house as a spare light. Some of the stuff I just don't use anymore. Most of it I do. Basically everything from here over I do use. So I still get enjoyment, and I use them all the time, but I experienced a burnout. That's why this channel is what it is, because I want to talk more about the ideas and philosophies and the discussion behind EDC, and not so much the gear. There will be gear reviews, but for right now, I just want to talk about that. That's what this channel was made for, and that's my intention behind it. But Nick Shabazz, he's not necessarily talked about burnout, but I noticed he's pulled back, and he's talked about it in his disassembly discourses, where he's pulled back a little bit. He's doing more quick reviews, and he's just he's pulling back, I think, so he can find enjoyment in it again, and not so much, oh, I got to get this review out, right? And I could see where that could be taxing on a person. And those are just some of the ugly things in this, that because EDC has gotten so popular, that some of the ugly things that can happen. But again, there's so many more positive, beautiful things. Ben Peterson from NAFS, he used to work for Blade HQ, but now he's got his own company where he designs and has knives made. And honestly, their knives, their options, I mean, he's not the only one. There's so many options out there that are way better than what I have on the table here. And what I mean by that is it could be 90% as good as this and way better than this at a fraction of the price. And that's a beautiful, wonderful thing, because we're getting back to where you have options. It's allowed for options to be displayed before you. Kershaw uses this crossbar lock. They call it the Duralock. You have Kaiser. They have their clutch lock. It's the same thing, but now you have options and different blade materials, and it's beautiful. This is an option that I wanted. I wanted a digital watch with a metal case and a sapphire crystal, and I got it because I couldn't really afford what the option that I had, only other option I had. There's not a lot of companies making this, at least not that I've seen. I could get a smartwatch, but I really don't want that. I do wish this had some of the features this had, but I'm happy to wear it for what it is. I love that I can change the strap options. I mean, I've made with these adapters, I can do the same thing, but again, it's something of beauty. And I'm really hopeful, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what else comes out because of how big this community has gotten, how many companies are coming out catering to us, catering to the community, into the hobby. I really am excited to see what the future holds and what's going to happen. Unfortunately, there might be a little more ugly coming out, but I think there's also going to be a lot of good coming out, because there's a lot of good gear out there. These are some of the options, but there's a lot of good. And that's just amazing to me. And I'm going to end it on that note. Thank you guys for listening to me. Thank you for your viewership. God bless you and your families. And remember, Jesus loves you. Bye-bye.